Inga Sorrento.
Well, welcome back. Now, we've got two of the smartest strategists in Australia. We've got Michael Kroger from the Liberal Party and Bruce Hawker, and we're going to talk about what they do, the major parties do to get engaged.
And why young people especially are disillusioned. There are a couple of old stages, aren't they?
Well, I don't know.
They're much older than us.
Well, they look very young, I would have thought. I thought you and I look very young. I mean, that Kroger doesn't age, and look at Hawker.
I sat on your knee as a child. What are you talking about?
How better introduce Michael?
Well, all right. Well, how about we start with Michael Kroger. Michael Kroger has been a political activist for the Liberal Party since the 1970s. He was very prominent in the Liberal students' movement. He became a state president of the Liberal Party in Victoria in the late 1980s. 25 years later, he returned to the position of state presidency, but throughout that, he was very influential and a participant in the great Liberal advances of those years. Michael, thanks for joining us. Bruce Hawker's here.
You're very kind, Peter.
Yeah, and of course, Bruce Hawker is one of the smartest strategic minds, outside, obviously, Michael Kroger. He headed up Hawker Britain, which is a very successful consultancy. But more than that, he was a strategic advisor on all my landslide wins. So
Indeed.
I
From
know how smart
opposition.
he is. That's right, when we left opposition behind.
How much fun was that?
That was a lot of fun.
Peter, you made him look good.
Indeed.
Look, let's come to the heart of all this, and I just want to read out some statistics. We've talked about how low the Liberal and Labor Party vote, the primary vote is. It's in the 30s. When I was a kid, it was always in the 40s. So the rusted-on people have gone. But look at some of these memberships. The CWA has got a membership of between 40 and 45.
1,000.
Collingwood Football Club's got, 1,000. Collingwood's got about 76,000. The Scouts have got 66,000. These figures are a few years ago. The RSL's got 240,000 and the Melbourne Cricket Club's got 102,800. Now, these are all courtesy of a journalist called Kathy Alexander from Crikey. She wrote these a few years ago. So if you look at all that, all those clubs have got a lot of members, but the Labor Party, which has probably got about 44,000, according to Kevin Rudd, he said that in about 2013. We think the Libs have got a few more, but roughly the same. So we had a problem. So maybe, Michael, we can start with you. The Liberal Party in Victoria was always the most populous part of the Liberal Party, and at one point the Liberals had about 200,000. So what do you think's happened, and how do the major political parties re-engage to increase their membership again?
Well, the answer is there's no quick fix, and the answer is to getting new members. It's just a daily grind, because I put the origin of the decline of political party membership, and it's a worldwide phenomenon, by the way, in France, Britain, Germany, Italy, America. This is not just Australia. And I put the decline primarily to the collapse of the Berlin Wall back in 1989. Why is that? Because that's when the ideological divide between the two great strands of political thinking narrowed. And once you had an end to communism, the left became closer to the centre. The right sort of became closer to the centre because it didn't have the grand enemy that it had before. And with that narrowing of the divide, the issues became more localised. So, I joined the Liberal Party, for example, in 1973, Peter, because I was an anti-communist. Nobody joins the Liberal Party today because they're an anti-communist. So no one joins for the reason I joined. So because of that divide narrowing, the issues aren't as clear. Young people don't feel the need to be disciplined by the strictures of political parties, and they're more interested in single issues. So the answer to your question
Michael.
is it's going to be very, very difficult to get anywhere near those membership levels again, and we won't.
All right, Michael, point taken in regard to membership. But what about party support? The Liberal Party primary vote at the moment is 35%. Federally, it can't win under 43%. Why are so many people disillusioned with the mainstream parties and going to One Nation and shooters and parties at state level on the right and
the Greens on the left?
The Greens on the left?
Well, I think the answer is because, historically since '89, there's been an increase in economic freedom and an increase in liberty, although challenged that in some parts of Australia in terms of certain legislation from time to time. But because of the increase in economic freedom and liberty, people and self-reliance, people don't feel the obligation to be bound by every single policy of a political party. So, as you guys well know, and Bruce well knows, you join a party, you've got to get out there and bat for every policy, even those you don't agree with. Well, a lot of people decide today, I don't need to do that. Why do I need to do that? If I oppose this policy, I'll get out and say I oppose it. So there is a distinction between the older members, and the membership of all political parties is ageing, between those old hacks like us that are prepared to bat for things we don't believe in, and the younger people that basically say, that's not for me. That's not for me. I want to speak my mind if I want to.
Bruce, what do you think? You heard Michael, you heard the questions?
Well, I think a lot of people join the Labor Party because they're anti-communist too. And that goes to the nature of the Labor Party back in the 1950s and 1960s, when it was heavily divided, and there was a huge split in the party, which led to the development and growth of the Democratic Labor Party. So we've always had these issues about smaller parties coming along and creating major problems.
DLP at one point.
Yeah, well, the DLP was a huge problem for Labor, as everybody would know if they've got an eye to history. I mean, it kept Labor out of government, really, for the best part of 23 years. So it is the rise of smaller parties that creates this issue, and sometimes it's around ideology. Sometimes, as Michael says, it's because people don't feel the need, like their mother or father did, to vote Liberal or to vote Labor because that was where their bread and butter was. You know, you don't actually, by voting for the Labor Party now, you don't necessarily. It doesn't mean that your life's going to come to an end if you don't, or if your life's going to be so much better if you do. Back in the 1930s, you know, my mother was asked and told by her mother to kneel down and thank God for Jack Lang every night because he had brought in the widow's pension, and that meant the family was able to stay together when they lost their breadwinner.
So why does the CWA then? No, the CWA has as many members as the major parties. So why is the CWA so popular and the political parties aren't?
Well, maybe it's because in large part it's an organisation which is driven by membership and by local activity. You know, the CWA is a grassroots organisation, and one of the problems I think that the Labor Party's had increasingly in recent years is that it ceased to be or it's become less and less of a grassroots party and more the creature of unions. And I know that the union started the Labor Party in 1891 and there's an historical connection. But the fact is that the unions have now got more control over the Labor Party than they have pretty much any time up to the present day, certainly in recent history. And that creates big problems for people who want to join a party because they're interested in the issues rather than because they need political advancement in order to hold a job.
Yep, understood. Michael, just going back to a very important point you made, which is that people feel they can vote on issues, whether it affects them directly or it's a philosophical, ideological issue for them. The price for that are 12 cross benches in the Senate and the often chaos or the lack of reform and the blockage that causes, which sort of feeds the problem then for the major political parties. Do you see any quick solution to the legislative blockages we have at present, or are people going to continue to support single-issue parties at times?
Well, they're going to keep doing that. Hopefully change the voting system, the quota system for the next Senate election will mean that perhaps one or two of these independents don't get re-elected. In a half-cent election, of course, the quota's higher. So hopefully either Liberal, or Labor will get somewhere close to a majority, but either way they're going to be influenced by the Greens. But no, this phenomenon's going to continue for quite some time, which is the phenomenon of the outsider. It's the Trump phenomenon, obviously, the Brexit phenomenon, which is, people are doing better than me. It's all those clever people in Canberra and in Washington who are manipulating the system. I'm not getting what I'm entitled to. They listen to people on the far left and the far right that say the system's rotted, and they feel that they're being squeezed or disenfranchised or disadvantaged by them in power who know better and who know how to manipulate the system. So, Peter, this is a phenomenon that's going to go for quite some time.
Do you have a solution, Michael?
Well, I think in time the wheel will turn, and you'll find that these smaller and minor parties don't offer the solutions. I mean, there will come a time when people say, the all things to all people approach to politics is not working, and that time will come soon in Australia within the next decade, where people see the debt's out of control.
Populism won't work.
It won't work because the debt's out of control. The demands for public expenditure are becoming greater than the public ultimately will bear, and the economic situation will deteriorate in Australia. Our terms of trade will deteriorate. We'll be disadvantaged.
But can't you do anything in the meantime, Michael? That's sort of waiting for Armageddon.
No, you can't.
Right,
You don't
let
think
me ask you this question. Firstly, Bruce, and then Michael, I'll ask you this as well. Get Up. They claim to have something like 630,000 members. Now, maybe that's anyone who's ever contacted them, but they do mobilise and they do have money, some of which comes from overseas, I understand it. So how big a threat is Get Up, and how do the major political parties then have to start using social media similar to them to keep their membership?
Well, the major parties are now using social media, not necessarily all that effectively, I suspect, but of course Get Up's got the ability and the freedom to be able to just move in a populist way from the left, in the way in which some of these right-wing groups are doing on the right. And of course, populism's nothing recent, new to to politics. It's been around for the best part of 100 years or more. Get Up, I think, it does represent a real threat to Labor, in that a lot of young people who once would have joined the Labor Party and gone off to branch meetings and worked their way through the party structure now can, in a much more libertarian sort of a way, go and associate themselves with Get Up, become part of campaigns, drop in, drop out, and work on issues that they believe in, and not, as Michael was saying earlier, all the issues, all the platform that the party prescribes. I've been to Get Up's offices in Sydney, and I can tell you they've got more people working there on the payroll than the New South Wales Labor Party head office does.
And they've got more resources.
Yeah, they've got more resources. They are much wealthier.
So, Michael, what do you think? You agree with... What do you think about Get Up and its resources?
Well, obviously they're very well resourced. It's always a worry that they're getting funds from overseas, and the rumours are that that's the case. Look, ultimately, Peter, the answer is this, that in the sweep of Australian political history, there have been two great political parties, two and a half if you add the National Party in, who have endured since the Second World War and the predecessors to the Liberal Party before 1944. And they have endured because they represent the two grand strains of political thinking throughout the Western world. Through that period since the 40s, we've seen the rise and fall of all sorts of minor and smaller parties on the left and the right. And you start, of course, with the DLP, most notably. You go through parties like the Nuclear Disarmament Party, the Australian Democrats. Now you have the Greens, who are going to be a permanent establishment for quite some time. Get Up are popular and as I said, well funded at the minute. Can that be sustained in due course? No, because I think over a period of 10 years, as I was saying earlier, there will be a reversion to political responsibility, where people basically have to be responsible for their actions. And this whole notion that, government should do this and government should do that, and I'm not responsible. And I'm
but
just
in the
putting
meantime,
my
Michael...
well, I don't... Peter, I'd like to say there's something you can do tomorrow, but
all right.
I don't know that there is.
Well, what about making branch meetings more participatory, more interesting? Obviously, the Liberal Party, as most political parties, have gender issues. We also have the problem of factionalism. I challenged Senator Anthony Chisholm earlier on about factionalism. If this is all an unfriendly or even hostile environment, why would people give up their Thursday or Wednesday night to attend a branch meeting controlled or dominated by some self-serving or self-promoting opportunist?
Well, Peter, our branch meetings are fascinating. I don't know which ones you've been to in Sydney recently. I worked out the other day, Pete, that I've been to over 4,000 branch meetings since I joined the Liberal Party in 1973, and they've all been terrific. They've all been terrific.
That's why you've kept that youthful look.
It's the quality of the speakers.
Is that what it is?
But look, the answer is, factions, personal disputes, these things, arguments over particular policies, these things ebb and flow in any voluntary organisation, whether it's the Liberal Party, the ALP, the Nationals, whether it's the political parties, whether it's Rotary or the YMCA. In any voluntary organisation in the Western world, there's a rising and fall in terms of the quality of the people running them, the quality of the membership, the concern of the issues, etc. So this is just part of the cycle of volunteerism.
Let me ask you,
you know.
Peter, let me ask this question of both you and Michael. Let's start with you, Bruce. In Britain, of course, we've got this, under Jeremy Corbyn, this enormous increase in rank and file membership.
Yep.
Yet he's got as much chance of winning the British election as you and I have, and we're not running.
Yeah, exactly.
Although he is improving, I must say.
He has picked up.
He has picked up.
But I think he's only 15% behind now.
So what does that mean? I mean, he's got popular support.
Because they changed the rules to allow people to basically to become associate members for £5 each. So they devalued the value of being a member of the Labor Party for a start, and it led to a flooding of people into the party who basically wanted to take it over. They were essentially Trotskyists and communists and fellow travellers and well, not just lefties. I mean, the Labor Party's full of them.
No, but
these are really, you know, these people believe in the worker Soviets, you know. So that's the problem that Corbyn has created, or the people that set up these mechanisms have created. Having said that, if you do actually empower the rank and file more to vote in elections and so forth, but but make it a higher test for them to become members of the party, so they actually have to jump through a few hoops and have to pay some more money and probably have a year or two before they can actually vote, then you can actually increase involvement and participation of the party. And the example of that is the New Democratic Party in Canada, which was a rump party until about 2003, when they changed all the rules and they stopped being essentially a Labor Party and became a Social Democratic Party, introduced rank and file election of the leader, and they went from having 13 members in one party in one term to having 103 in the next and becoming the opposition. You can do it if you're prepared to give power to members, but you actually have to make sure that they're people who support the basic principles of your party and aren't just there to take it over.
Now, we've only got 4 minutes left. I wonder if we could finish with this. I think we
Although we should give Michael a chance to answer the same question.
Of course.
About Michael, mass participation. It has some risks, as Bruce has said, in the UK. I think it's going to kill the Labor Party in the UK. But on the other hand, if you don't give people a role in a political party, why would they join?
Yeah, correct. Well, don't forget, political party memberships of the left, the members are always more left-wing than their voters. And in the Liberal Party and the National Party on the right, our members are more right-wing than our voters. So this is the problem what the British Labor Party have done. If you give the members a vote, they're going to vote for someone on the left who doesn't appeal to the people in the centre, because the members are more left-wing than the Labor voters. And this is a terrible mistake that the British Labor Party have made. They wouldn't vote for Tony Blair or, you know, Gordon Brown or anyone. They're going to vote for Corbyn, and when he goes, they'll vote for someone else from the left, and this is their grand problem. But yeah, look, obviously you want greater participation. As you know, many parties in Australia from time to time have trialled plebiscites amongst electorates in pre-selection of candidates. These things are always under review. Political parties must reflect their voters and must reflect Middle Australia, and when they don't, they get into serious electoral trouble.
They don't win. Can I just pose one question to both of you before you go? If you were running, say, the Labor Party, what would you do in terms of the future to guarantee a membership base, but also to try and do something about the dropping primary vote?
Well, as I said, I'd give more power to the membership, but I would create a bigger barrier to people actually joining the Labor Party, so you don't have the sort of problems that Corbyn had. I think the future for the Labor Party has to be in empowering members much more in the sense of giving them a vote, more say in the election of other officials inside the party than is currently the case.
That would weaken the factions.
It would certainly weaken the factions, and it would. But you have to make sure that the parliamentary party still has a balancing role, as they do under the rules at the moment, because otherwise you do see this Corbyn problem where Corbyn has no support in the parliamentary party, but overwhelming support in the rank and file.
But Bruce, it can't just be a monetary issue, whether it's £5 entry fee or $200. The policies have to be right. somehow the mainstream parties are not connecting enough with the idealism with many in the community.
Well, they're not connecting with the anger in the community, and it's probably easier to generate that anger these days than it once was because of social media and so forth. So they've always got to deal with that. But, you know, I'm also of the view that this crazy period of populism that we're seeing around the world has just got to play out, and people have got to see that it is not the answer. And at that point, I think you'll see a resurgence of sensible politics.
Well, you and Michael on that point agree.
We'll give Michael a chance.
Yeah, I think because Michael's the president, we have to ask it a little bit differently. Michael, where do you see the Liberal Party in terms of its organisation in the future? Do you see it making changes or building its support? What do you see the future direction of the organisation?
Well, it's obviously got a lot of challenges, as does any voluntary organisation. So political parties around the world in the last 20 years have lost 2/3 of their membership. And as I said, that's across the Western world, 2/3 of their membership. So people to say, oh, we've got to have a membership drive, we've got to make meetings more interesting, you've got to do all of those things. But we're not going to return to the mass party base that we were 50 years ago when we had over 50,000 members in Victoria, for example. So you have to do more with less. Times are changing. Campaigning now because of electronic mail, telephone town halls, telephone canvassing, the campaigning is changing. You can actually do a lot more with less members, with fewer members. The challenge is to make sure that those members pre-select people who are reflective of the community and not just reflecting of Liberal Party members, and it's the same for the ALP. When the ALP tries to democratise by giving the members a greater say, they voted for Albanese and they were overruled by the parliamentary party. So that just must infuriate the base, who now know that it's basically was a token vote amongst the members because they wanted Albanese and the federal members had more power and overruled them.
Michael, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And Bruce, this has been a great discussion, and we haven't heard the end of it because parties will struggle. Otherwise, you'll end up with the ones that you referred to, Michael. That is the minor parties actually running the show like they do in the Senate right now.
Correct. Yep.
So, Michael, thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Great pleasure. Thank you, guys.
We'll be back in a minute.